Tonight, we drift through the rain-soaked streets of New York, a city that once belonged to men who ruled in silence. Carmine the cigar, Galante, the volcano that burned too bright. Anthony Gaspipe, Casso, the machine that learned to whisper. Both men believed fear could last forever. Both learned that silence always outlives power. From candlelit restaurants to concrete cells. From whispered orders to thunder rolling over Brooklyn rooftops. This is their story. A story of ambition, betrayal, and rain. So close your eyes. Let the storm settle. Let the smoke fade. And as you breathe deeper, drift with us into the shadows of a city that never sleeps, and the ghosts who never left it. This is the cigar and the gaspipe. Rain is falling on Brooklyn again. Not the heavy kind. The kind that hangs in the air like memory, slow, steady, patient. It glistens on fire escapes, gathers in cracked pavement, slides down windows fogged by cigarette smoke and cooking oil. The year is 1910. The city still smells of horse sweat, tobacco, and the iron tang of ship hulls rusting along the docks. And somewhere near the East River, a boy is sitting on the steps of a tenement building, chewing on a half-smoked cigar. His name is Carmine Galante. He is 13 years old. They already call him Lilo, the cigar, because he's never seen without one. He doesn't smoke it. He just likes the taste. It makes him look older, sharper, harder. In a neighborhood where boys vanish into the mills or the prisons, appearance is the first form of armor. Carmine's father is a fisherman from Castellamare del Golfo, Sicily, same as Joe Bonanno's people. His mother works long hours sewing shirts by candlelight. But the boy doesn't dream of fishing boats or factories. He dreams of respect, that strange word whispered by older men with gold rings and long memories. By 16 he's already running errands for them. He delivers small packages, collects debts, carries messages in a mouth that never leaks. He learns early that silence is the rarest currency in Brooklyn, and he never spends it too soon. The rain keeps falling as years pass. Prohibition arrives like a fever. Overnight, liquor becomes more valuable than gold, and boys like Carmine grow into men with guns. He learns to drive trucks, rum runners loaded with Canadian whiskey and Sicilian marsala. He drives through the night, headlights off, heartbeat steady, cigar between his teeth. When police lights flash behind him, he doesn't flinch. He knows the right names to whisper. In 1930, the Castellamarese War tears the mafia in two, Maranzano versus Masuria. Bodies in gutters, rumors in every barbershop. Carmine picks a side. Joe Bonanno, the quiet student from Sicily, the man who speaks softly and carries a knife hidden in history. Bonanno sees something in the young enforcer, not loyalty but precision. Galante doesn't rage. He executes. One night, in a dim alley behind a grocery, Carmine makes his first real kill. He says nothing before or after. Only lights another cigar, the match reflecting in his eyes like a tiny confession. By the 1940s, he is the kind of man who doesn't walk, he arrives. Slim, dark-haired, expressionless. People step aside without realizing why. He has no wife, no hobbies, no visible joy. Even the way he breathes feels deliberate. His reputation spreads quietly. They say he walks alone at night, the sound of his shoes echoing against wet cobblestone. That if he looks at you twice, you're already half buried. The papers will one day call him the walking volcano. But in these early years, the fire is still hidden, trapped beneath calm, waiting for oxygen. He believes the world is divided into two kinds of men. Those who talk and those who act. He decides early that he'll never waste breath on the first category. When World War II erupts, Carmine spends time behind bars for assault and narcotics. Prison doesn't scare him. He reads, listens, studies. In the yard, he watches how men build empires even inside cages, with favors, threats, silence. He learns patience there. He learns how to wait for the perfect moment to speak. And when he gets out, the world outside has changed again. Prohibition is gone, but heroin has arrived. The French Connection pipeline is opening between Marseille and Montreal, and the Bonanno family is positioning itself to control it. Carmine sees the opportunity not as crime but as architecture, a way to build something permanent out of fear and discipline. He calls it the Empire of Powder. Others laugh. He doesn't. His eyes narrow, the smoke curls from his lips, and he says softly, America was built on something white, flour, sugar, snow. I'm just selling the truth. They don't laugh anymore. In time, the old dons retire or die and new ones take their places. But Galante doesn't change. He doesn't adapt to modern suits, doesn't learn to smile for cameras. He still dresses like the 1940s, dark wool coat, plain tie, black shoes shine like mirrors. He still keeps a cigar clenched between his teeth even when speaking to priests or politicians. He rises inch by inch through layers of betrayal. Every promotion comes at a funeral. Every ally turns temporary. He trusts no one except the silence he carries. They say he keeps notebooks filled with the names of men who owe him favors. He never writes their debts, only their weaknesses. And when the time comes, he doesn't call in favors, he collects silence. The city knows his name now. But the commission, the council of bosses, does not love him. They think he's reckless, too ambitious, too loud without speaking. He ignores them. He believes he's destined to rule not one family but all of them. By 1975, he walks into restaurants with the arrogance of a man who's already written his own obituary. He tells reporters cigars help him stay calm. He smiles for cameras, that small knowing smirk that says he understands more than he'll ever tell. The FBI follows him through Bushwick, through Little Italy, through Montreal. He always seems one street ahead, one shadow out of reach. On quiet nights, when the rain taps the windows of his apartment, he hums Sicilian folk songs under his breath. He thinks of his father's fishing boat, long gone to rot. He thinks of the ocean crossing that brought his bloodline here. And he thinks, maybe for the first time, about what happens when the silence turns inward, when even fear has no one left to feed on. The night before his death, Carmine eats alone. He takes small bites, slow, deliberate. He chews on a cigar that's gone out. He doesn't relight it. He just holds it between two fingers, like a promise he's already kept. Rain whispers against the window. The city outside glows orange with sodium lights. Somewhere a car idles too long. He doesn't look up. He never sees the two men who will walk through that gate tomorrow, ski masks tight, guns drawn. He never sees the headlines, the photographs, the myth being born. He only knows this: the world built on silence must one day fall quiet again. And yet, history doesn't end with one body in Bushwick. Power never dies. It changes shape. It waits for another man to believe he can control it. In another decade, another borough, another boy will walk home through puddles that shimmer under streetlights. A boy named Anthony Casso. He will learn the same lessons in different rain. For now, the storm over Brooklyn keeps falling. Soft, patient, endless. Washing blood into memory. And memory into sleep. Rain again. Always rain. By the mid-1950s, New York is a city of wet stone and restless ambition. The docks still hum at night, but the ships now bring a different cargo. Heroin pressed into the walls of statues, sewn into rugs, hidden in jars of olive oil that smell of Marseille and money. At the center of it all sits Carmine Galante. He moves like a man who has learned to let the world speak first. When he enters a room, conversation stumbles. He doesn't raise his voice, doesn't need to. Every gesture, every silence, feels like a threat that hasn't decided what shape it will take. He runs the Bonanno family's narcotics operation the way a conductor leads an orchestra. One nod, one glance, and the whole city moves in rhythm. French chemists refine the product. Sicilian cousins ship it. Small-time pushers on the Lower East Side pass it into the veins of America. Each dose is another brick in Galante's invisible kingdom. He tells his lieutenants, the French build cathedrals. I build markets. Both require faith. They laugh softly. They do not realize he means it. In the evenings, he dines in silence at La Stella on Mulberry Street. He eats slowly, chewing until the noise of the room fades into nothing but forks and rain. He prefers veal with lemon, black espresso, and a cigar he never finishes. To him, the half-smoked cigar is a ritual, a reminder that satisfaction is weakness. The waiters say he tips with exact change. Not $1 more. Not $1 less. He speaks rarely of loyalty. He prefers obedience. And when a man fails, he doesn't yell. He simply looks at him, one slow, cold glance, as if measuring where the bullet will go. Those who survive that look become loyal for life. Those who don't, disappear before sunrise. By 1957, Carmine has become indispensable to Joe Bonanno, the aging boss who still believes the mafia can behave like a family. But Galante believes something different, that a family without fear is only a house with a weak lock. He builds an inner circle: Cesare Bonventre, Baldo Amato, Nicky Maranghello, Sicilian men with quiet eyes and quick hands. Together they control the French Connection pipeline, moving heroin worth millions every month. He calls it Il Fiume Bianco, the White River. It flows through every borough, every port, every bloodstream. The newspapers start whispering about it. So do the other families. But Carmine doesn't flinch. He keeps building. The years in prison had taught him that patience is another form of power. He uses it now, waiting for Bonanno to weaken. He never raises his hand against his boss, not directly. He just stands behind him long enough for everyone to notice which shadow is larger. By the early 1960s, Bonanno is in exile, hiding in Arizona, pretending retirement. Galante becomes acting boss in all but name. He drives through Bushwick in a black Cadillac, window cracked open just enough to let cigar smoke drift into the street. Kids playing stickball stop to watch. They don't know who he is, but they understand what he represents: control, unspoken and absolute. The FBI begins watching him closely. Wiretaps, informants, cameras hidden in cigarette machines. But Galante moves like fog, visible yet untouchable. In one surveillance photo, he's stepping out of a restaurant, raincoat collar up, cigar in mouth, looking straight into the camera as if he knows it's there. The agent who developed the photo wrote in his report, "He doesn't hide. He dares you to blink." Galante never blinks. He meets occasionally with his lieutenants at a warehouse near the docks. There's no table, just crates and the smell of diesel. They talk numbers, routes, payoffs. When someone mentions how risky heroin has become, Carmine shrugs. He says, "Every empire burns. The trick is to light it yourself so no one else can." Silence follows. Then laughter, nervous but obedient. The quiet volcano has spoken. But power feeds on itself. Every success becomes another secret to protect, another betrayal waiting to hatch. Carmine grows restless. He wants more than money. He wants memory. He starts telling his men that the old bosses, Luciano, Costello, Genovese, were politicians, not men of action. He calls them cowards hiding behind committees. He calls himself the last real Sicilian. Word spreads. The commission listens. They do not like what they hear. In 1975, at a meeting in Montreal, a Bonanno soldier brings up Galante's arrogance. He calls him a volcano that never cools. Everyone nods. But no one dares speak of stopping him. Meanwhile, Galante returns to New York and doubles down. He replaces old captains with Sicilian zips, young killers from the old country who owe loyalty to him alone. He speaks openly of taking control of the entire narcotics trade, cutting out the other families. He says the commission is weak, too American, too polite. He calls it a court of ghosts. Even his allies begin to fear the sound of his footsteps. Still, Carmine walks as if he's already won. He eats at Joe and Mary's restaurant every Thursday. He sits outside when the weather's good because he likes the smell of rain mixing with cigar smoke. He says it reminds him of Sicily. He says storms clean the air. The waiters adore him. The younger mobsters admire him. And the FBI photographs him from across the street, noting that he always sits with his back to the wall, until the last week when he doesn't. There are warnings. A whisper from Montreal. A car that follows too close. A message delivered through a priest. He ignores them all. He tells a friend, "They wouldn't dare. I'm the one who keeps the money moving." But money is never enough protection. Not in a world built on blood. And somewhere in Brooklyn, two men are already practicing, assembling their pistols, memorizing faces, rehearsing the silence between footsteps. That night, Carmine dreams of the sea. He sees his father's fishing boat again, rocking in gray water. He hears waves against wood, wind through rigging. And far away, thunder. He wakes before dawn, lights a cigar, and watches smoke drift through the half-open window. The city outside is quiet, waiting. So is he. The volcano has no reason to believe it will ever erupt. The rain hasn't stopped for weeks. New York in 1977 feels drowned. A city of leaking ceilings and flickering neon, steam rising from sewer grates like the breath of something ancient. Carmine Galante walks through it as if the world belongs to him. He doesn't hurry. He never has. Each step is measured, deliberate, like a man pacing out the boundaries of his own empire. At 67, he's not supposed to look dangerous anymore. His hair has gone gray, his hands a little slower, but the eyes are the same. Flat. Cold. The color of steel left in the rain too long. He lights a cigar even in the downpour. The flame trembles, then steadies. He draws once, exhales, and keeps walking. People move aside without knowing why. They feel something in the air, the weight of reputation. Inside Joe and Mary's Italian restaurant on Knickerbocker Avenue, his men wait. Cesare Bonventre. Baldo Amato. A few younger soldiers who look at him like he's immortal. They rise when he enters. He waves them down. "No ceremonies," he mutters. "We're not priests." He sits at his favorite table, the one near the window, half sheltered by the awning where he can see both street and sky. Rain slides down the glass in silver threads. He likes that. He says it reminds him that even water falls in lines, never out of order. The food arrives, veal, bread, espresso. He doesn't eat much. He talks instead. He tells them the old commission, the Council of the Five Families, has become a museum. He says the bosses sit around like tired kings waiting for their crowns to rust. He laughs softly, a sound like a cough swallowed in smoke. You know what they fear most? He says. A man who doesn't need their permission. He looks at each of them in turn. No more waiting for scraps. No more bowing to ghosts. From now on we run things. The room is silent. Only the rain answers. Someone clears his throat. The commission won't like that, Carmine. Galante smiles. I'm not asking what they like. Outside, thunder rolls over the city. Inside, history begins to tilt. Word of his declaration travels fast. Within days, other bosses know. Galante has crowned himself without ceremony, without vote, without fear. The Gambinos, the Luccheses, the Colombos, all hear it and wait for proof. The proof comes soon enough. In a single week, Carmine orders 3 rival dealers shot, 2 captains replaced, and 1 Montreal shipment rerouted directly to his warehouses. Each act is both message and signature. He leaves no notes. Only cigars. One at every scene. Still burning. The newspapers begin calling him the boss of bosses. The title was once reserved for Salvatore Maranzano, murdered decades earlier. Now Galante wears it without flinching. He gives no interviews. But the image spreads, the old man with the cigar smiling through the smoke, daring the world to test him. Behind closed doors the commission gathers. The heads of the other families meet in half-dark rooms with blinds drawn and whiskey untouched. They talk quietly, never naming him directly. Instead they say, the volcano is awake again. Some argue for patience, let him burn himself out. Others whisper that volcanoes never stop on their own. Meanwhile Carmine grows bolder. He fills the Bonanno ranks with new blood, Sicilian immigrants who owe loyalty not to New York but to him personally. They speak little English. They answer to no one else. He calls them I ragazzi del silenzio, the boys of silence. They call him Il Papa Nero, the Black Pope. Even his allies start to feel uneasy. He moves too fast, too loud. He stops attending commission meetings altogether, sending excuses no one believes. He says they bore him. He says he has work to do. The FBI watches the shift with fascination. Wiretaps pick up fragments, Galante's calm baritone, always unhurried. He talks about numbers the way poets talk about love. He talks about fear like it's a flavor he's trying to perfect. One agent, after months of surveillance, writes in his notes. Galante doesn't want power. He wants to be remembered as inevitable. That word fits him perfectly. Inevitable. One evening at his townhouse in Queens, he sits by the window smoking while his bodyguard reads him a report, a list of names suspected of talking to the other families. He listens, expression unchanged. When the list ends he says quietly, erase them. The guard hesitates. All of them? Galante nods once. The cigar tip glows like a dying planet. Silence is the only language I trust. That summer the city sweats under the kind of heat that cracks sidewalks. Garbage piles in alleys. The blackout comes, July 13, 1977, and for 2 nights New York turns into a memory of chaos. Fires, looting, sirens that don't stop. In the darkness, Galante's men move freely, settling debts, sending messages. No one can trace them. The police are blind. The city burns, and in the smoke he sees opportunity. He tells his men, when everyone's screaming, the quiet man wins. But quiet men can still be watched. By autumn, even his closest lieutenants begin whispering behind closed doors. They see what he doesn't, the inevitability of his isolation. Every empire built on fear eventually starts fearing itself. Bonaventure worries that the other families are uniting against them. Amato urges caution. Carmine waves them off. He says, they wouldn't dare. He smiles, a tired smile that doesn't reach his eyes. You can't kill what you still owe money to. He forgets one truth the rain has always known. Even rivers turn against their source when the current changes. Late that year, a meeting takes place in Little Italy. Not a commission meeting, something smaller, quieter, more dangerous. Representatives from the Gambino, Lucchese, and even Bonanno factions gather in the basement of a bakery. The smell of dough and gun oil fills the air. No one says the word, assassination. They don't have to. The silence speaks for them. A man from Montreal, Zips they call them, nods and says softly, it will be handled. He trusts us. Back in Brooklyn, Carmine lights another cigar and watches the rain. He doesn't know that the volcano smoke is already rising above him. He tells a friend over dinner. I built something that will outlive all of us. The friend asks, what if it doesn't? Galante smiles. Then at least it will die loud. Outside, thunder murmurs. Inside, he finishes his espresso, leaves a perfect tip, and steps into the night without looking back. He believes he's untouchable. He believes fear is armor. He believes silence will protect him one more time. He believes too much. By Christmas, the commission has made its decision. Carmine's fate is sealed in the same calm tone he once used to seal others. No anger, no ceremony. Just balance, the old Sicilian way. He doesn't know it yet, but the men chosen to end him are already close. Closer than family, close enough to hear him breathe. For now, the rain still falls. It washes the city clean for what's coming. The storm always does. Brooklyn, July 12, 1979. The air feels thick enough to cut with a knife. Rain had fallen overnight, but now the sun hangs heavy and yellow, trapped in the humidity. It's one of those days when everything smells faintly of asphalt and waiting. Carmine, the cigar, Galante wakes before dawn. He eats a small breakfast, black coffee, 2 slices of bread, no sugar. He tells his housekeeper not to worry about lunch. He'll eat at Joe and Mary's. He always eats there on Thursdays. He likes the routine. He likes the way the patio smells after rain, the sound of plates clinking in the kitchen, the slow rhythm of the street beyond the gate. He dresses carefully, dark slacks, a short-sleeved shirt, no tie. A cigar in his breast pocket, another between his teeth. He checks his reflection in the mirror, not vanity, just habit. Then he smiles, the small, almost polite smile of a man who believes he's still untouchable. The drive from Queens to Bushwick takes half an hour. The city hums under heat, kids running through hydrant spray, buses sighing, dogs panting in shade. Galante sits in the back seat, window cracked. The smell of cigar smoke mixes with gasoline and dust. His driver, Leonardo Coppola, talks about the Yankees game. Galante nods occasionally but doesn't answer. His mind drifts. He thinks of Sicily again. Of lemon trees, salt air, his father's fishing boat creaking in dawn water. He thinks of how quiet it was there, the kind of silence he's been chasing his whole life. Then the car slows. Joe and Mary's comes into view. A small restaurant, brick walls, iron gate, faded awning. Unremarkable. That's why he likes it. Inside, the air is cool, heavy with the scent of sauce and garlic. His friends are already there. Leonardo Coppola, Giuseppe Tirano, Cesare Bonventre, Baldo Amato. They stand when he enters. He waves them down. No need for all that, he says. Sit. It's too hot for respect. They laugh. He smiles, lights a fresh cigar. The flame catches easily, the tobacco hisses, then settles into a steady glow. He draws once, exhales slowly, watching the smoke drift toward the ceiling fan. Lunch begins. They talk about shipments, money, Montreal. Someone makes a joke about taxes. Carmine chuckles, a deep, warm sound that seems to make the air vibrate. Outside, the neighborhood moves lazily. A mailman wipes his forehead. A child bounces a ball against a wall. The world doesn't know it's about to hold its breath. At 2:45 p.m., the front gate swings open. 2 men enter. They wear ski masks even in the July heat. Their steps are calm, almost rehearsed. The first carries a shotgun. The second a pistol. There's a sound, not shouting, not warning, just the metallic click of readiness. Then thunder, but not from the sky. 12 shots in 3 seconds. The plates shatter. The espresso spills. Carmine falls backward in his chair, half his cigar still glowing between his teeth. Silence follows, the kind that seems to last longer than time itself. The gunmen leave without hurry. Neighbors peer from windows, too afraid to speak. Some say they saw 2 cars waiting outside. Others swear there was only one. But everyone agrees on one thing. The cigar never fell. When police arrive minutes later, they find him slumped in his chair, eyes open, mouth slightly curved as if still amused by something. Smoke curls from the end of the cigar, mingling with the smell of cordite and tomato sauce. Detective Ruggiero kneels beside the body. He's seen hundreds of killings but never one so quiet. He looks at the cigar, untouched, balanced perfectly between Galante's teeth. He whispers, he never dropped it. A photographer snaps the picture. Flash against sunlight, a single moment frozen. That image will travel the world before midnight. It will become legend. In the morgue later that evening, the coroner writes, multiple gunshot wounds. Instantaneous death. But he adds, almost reluctantly, cigar remained intact. As if even death hesitated before touching it. The newspapers the next morning run the photo on the front page. They call it, the death of the cigar. But those who knew him, truly knew him, said he'd always planned it that way. He believed image was immortality. He once told a friend, "If they ever get me, make sure they know I died exactly as I lived, calm." And he did. Behind the scenes, the commission breathes again. The balance restored. The volcano finally extinguished. But even in death, Galante's shadow lingers. The heroin trade doesn't die with him. It just divides, splinters, multiplies. Each faction carries a piece of his ruthlessness, like embers from a fire they can't stop feeding. For months, whispers spread through the underworld. Some say Bonaventure ordered it. Some say Montreal did. Others insist the commission gave the nod. No one ever proves it. No one ever dares to. At his funeral, rain begins to fall again. Soft, warm, endless. The umbrellas bloom black across the cemetery. A priest murmurs Latin no one listens to. In the distance, thunder rolls over the city, the same slow voice that followed him all his life. Someone lights a cigar and places it on the grave. The wind catches the smoke and carries it away. For a moment, it almost looks like he's still there, smiling under the gray sky, daring heaven itself to blink first. That night, Brooklyn sleeps uneasy. The streets glisten. The rain whispers against windows like confession. In some bar downtown, an old soldier raises a glass. "To Carmine," he says softly. "The only man who ever smoked through the storm." The others nod. No one says his last name. They don't need to. The smell of tobacco and rain says enough. The rain had changed, but it was still there. Thinner now, colder. A different century breathing the same rhythm. Brooklyn again, 1950s this time. Neon lights buzz above diners, radios hum Sinatra through open apartment windows, and the smell of fried onions and wet pavement fills the air. The old bosses are fading. New names rise in their place. Among the children running through the alleys of Bensonhurst, one boy moves differently. Quieter. More watchful. His name is Anthony Casso. He's small for his age, thick dark hair slicked back, eyes sharp and quick. The kind that never stay still but never miss anything either. He's 12, maybe 13, already working part-time in his father's plumbing shop. That's where the nickname begins. Gaspipe. No one remembers who said it first. Some say it came from the metal rods he used to carry on his shoulder while running errands. Others whisper that even then he'd already used one on another boy. Anthony never corrects them. He likes the sound of it, cold, heavy, permanent. His father, Michael, is a dock worker, quiet, disciplined, tired. He keeps his head down and tells his son to do the same. But Brooklyn in those years doesn't reward silence unless it's backed by fear. Anthony learns this fast. He watches men in suits visit the shop at night, the Lucchese boys collecting envelopes, shaking hands with his father. He hears the tone in their voices, the respect in their laughter. He notices how the same men who yell at cops whisper to these visitors. Respect, he decides, isn't about kindness. It's about control. At 15, Anthony gets caught stealing cigarettes. The officer slaps him, sends him home. His father nearly breaks his jaw for it. But the next week, a man named Paul Vario comes to see him. Vario runs the Lucchese crew out of Canarsie, construction, hijacking, bookmaking. He's big, loud, with a smile that hides knives. He tells Anthony, "Kid, you're smart enough to get caught but not stupid enough to talk." That's rare. He gives him $10 and a job moving crates off trucks. Anthony takes it. Within months, he's running messages between bars and warehouses, collecting small debts, learning the layout of Brooklyn by heart. Which blocks belong to which men, which doors to knock twice on, which to avoid altogether. He doesn't rush. He watches. And he learns that the men who live longest in this world aren't the loud ones. They're the ones who remember everything and say nothing. By 20, Anthony is earning steady money. His parents don't ask where it comes from. They just see the suits, the polished shoes, the cigarettes he doesn't pay for. At night, he drives through the rain-soaked streets, window cracked, listening to the rhythm of tires on wet asphalt. He says it helps him think. The world outside is gray and soft, and he feels invisible in it. That's when he knows he's found his element, silence. He begins handling collections personally. He never yells. He never threatens twice. The first time he asks, it's with a smile. The second time the smile disappears. The third time never comes. Word spreads. Gaspipe doesn't talk, he decides. In 1962 he makes his bones. A man named Benny Tarantino, a small bookmaker who tried to cheat the Luccheses, turns up in the back of his own car, hands folded like prayer, bullet behind the ear. Anthony is 22. He drives home in silence, wipes the steering wheel clean, and eats dinner with his mother. That night it rains again. He listens to it through the window and feels calm. Not proud. Not guilty. Just calm. Later, when he becomes underboss, he'll say, after your first, you stop killing people. You start removing problems. Through the late 1960s, Casso climbs fast. He becomes Vario's favorite, the one who keeps numbers straight and tempers cool. He starts wearing custom suits, nothing flashy, just perfectly pressed like armor. He still drives his own car. He still visits the same diner every morning for coffee. Routine keeps him invisible. The FBI knows his name but not his face. To them, he's a ghost attached to ledgers and phone calls. To the streets, he's the quiet man whose footsteps you never hear coming. He marries, moves into a modest house in Diker Heights. He plants a rose bush in the front yard, an odd choice for a man like him. His wife asks why. He shrugs. Something to remind me I can still grow things, he says. But the rose never blooms. The soil's too thin. Too many roots of other things buried there. By the mid-1970s, the mafia world is shifting again. The old dons are gone or dying. The new generation, brash, American-born, television-fed, believes in money more than honor. Casso belongs to both worlds. He understands the codes but respects efficiency more than tradition. He tells his men, honor is for funerals. Money keeps you alive. Still, he keeps the rituals, Sunday dinners, envelopes, handshakes. Because rituals keep people predictable. Predictable people are easy to control. He begins working with Vic Amuso, another Lucchese soldier, calm and brutal in equal measure. Together they rise, two minds that think alike. One strategic, one surgical. Amuso handles the politics. Casso handles the problems. They take over rackets in construction, trucking, and garbage disposal. Industries where no one looks too close at contracts or corpses. They don't talk about power, they demonstrate it quietly like gravity. But there's something different about Casso. Even among killers, he stands apart. He doesn't drink. He doesn't brag. He doesn't even seem to enjoy violence. He treats it like maintenance, like fixing a leak. When a man crosses him, he doesn't yell or threaten. He waits a week, sometimes a month. Then the man disappears. No pattern, no warning. Just precision. People begin to believe the rain follows him. They say every time Casso orders a hit, the sky darkens. Even detectives start joking. If it rains on your day off, check your mirrors. Gaspipe's working. He laughs when he hears that, a short, quiet laugh. He likes the idea that weather obeys him. In those years, he still drives the same streets Galante once ruled. The same diners, the same brick walls, the same cracked sidewalks where fear used to echo. Sometimes he passes Joe and Mary's, now closed, the paint peeling, the awning torn. He slows the car, looks through the fence. For a moment, he imagines the ghost of a man with a cigar sitting there, smiling. He says softly, "You burn loud. I'll burn quiet." Then he drives on. The 1980s arrive like a storm without thunder. The FBI grows sharper. The commission trial shakes the five families. But the Luccheses hold strong, for now. Amuso and Casso rise to power together, a partnership of logic and paranoia. They start to believe they can control everything, the unions, the cops, even the weather if they want to. But power doesn't stop growing. It consumes. And somewhere deep inside the quiet man, a fire starts, colder, slower, but every bit as deadly as Galante's before him. Brooklyn, 1978. A storm has rolled in from the Atlantic, flattening the horizon into gray. Rain drips from the elevated train tracks, streaking oil down rusted metal. Puddles form in the alleyways, black mirrors reflecting flickers of light from passing cars. Anthony Casso stands in one of those alleys, collar up, cigarette low between his fingers. He doesn't smoke cigars like the old men. He prefers the clean bite of tobacco, fast, sharp, gone. He listens. Not for footsteps, but for rhythm, the sound of the city breathing through pipes and gutters, through the slow groan of a world pretending to sleep. The man he's waiting for is late. That's the first mistake. Inside a warehouse a few blocks away, two Lucchese soldiers argue over a debt. One of them, Vinny the Mole Giordano, has been taking more than his share. Casso already knows. He's been patient, watching, verifying, letting the trap tighten on its own. When Vinny finally steps into the alley, Anthony nods once as if greeting a friend. "Rain's bad for business," he says softly. Vinny laughs nervously. "Yeah, I guess it is." Anthony gestures toward the warehouse door. "Let's get dry." They step inside. The light is dim, one bulb swinging overhead. The smell of oil, damp wood, and gunmetal fills the air. Casso takes out a rag, wipes a length of metal pipe, the kind used in plumbing. He doesn't look angry. He doesn't even look alive. Vinny starts to speak. Anthony cuts him off with a single swing. The sound is dull, heavy, more final than loud. Another strike. Then silence. The pipe clatters against the floor, rolling until it stops against the wall. The rain outside keeps falling. That's the night the name Gaspipe sticks. In the weeks that follow, people start to talk. Not openly, never loudly. But they talk. They say Anthony Casso doesn't carry a gun. They say he doesn't need to. They say he's calm until he isn't, and when that switch flips, the room changes temperature. They say he's loyal to the Luccheses, but more loyal to efficiency. They say he believes in fear the way priests believe in faith. Casso doesn't correct any of it. He just listens. He knows reputation is cheaper than bullets. And he's building one worth more than both. His mentor, Paul Vario, watches the transformation with quiet pride. He invites Anthony to dinner at Bamonte's in Williamsburg, one of those old Brooklyn joints where the air smells of garlic and ghosts. He pours wine, leans back and says, "Kid, you've got something most of these animals don't, restraint. Use it until you don't have to." Anthony nods, smiling faintly. He never drinks more than one glass. He never loses the thread of conversation. That night, Vario makes it official. Casso is a made man. A soldier of the Lucchese family. He takes the oath in a back room, candlelight flickering against plaster walls, the image of a saint staring down from a crooked frame. Blood burns, paper turns to ash, silence seals the promise. He repeats the words with precision. He means them. At least for now. Through the late 70s and into the 80s, Casso becomes the quiet machine that keeps the family moving. When trucks disappear, he finds them. When money goes missing, he locates it. When a man breaks his word, he vanishes. No noise. No spectacle. Just completion. He tells a driver once. Anger's bad business. You kill calm, they remember the silence longer. The driver laughs. A month later, he's gone too. No one ever finds the body. Detectives begin to notice patterns. They pin maps with colored string, tracing names that keep turning into ghosts. No witnesses. No fingerprints. Only rumors about rain. They start calling it Casso weather. The press, when they finally catch wind of it years later, will romanticize the myth, the idea that every storm in Brooklyn carries his echo. But in truth it was simpler. Anthony Casso just liked the sound of rain. He said it calmed him. In 1984 he forms a deeper bond with Vittorio Vic, Amuso, a man who shares his patience and his appetite for control. Amuso is methodical, almost academic in his violence. Together they form a balance. Casso the executioner, Amuso the strategist. Two sides of the same coin spinning toward destiny. They take over construction rackets, city contracts, labor unions. They control garbage routes, nightclubs, and entire neighborhoods where the only law that matters is unspoken. Casso starts saying something new to his men. Paper leaves trails. Blood leaves warnings. And in the quiet of his home, his wife starts noticing he sleeps less. He wakes in the middle of the night, goes to the window and just listens. To wind, to rain, to something invisible pressing against the glass. She asks what he's hearing. He answers, everything that could go wrong. By 1985, the mafia world begins to shift again. The FBI's RICO cases are landing blows across the five families. The old bosses, Castellano, Persico, Gotti, are caught in their own wars. Amuso and Casso watch from the sidelines, patient, careful, waiting for the cracks to widen. Casso studies their mistakes like scripture. He learns that paranoia isn't weakness. It's survival. He starts cultivating informants inside the NYPD, officers who sell secrets for envelopes of cash. They call themselves the Crystal. They feed him raid schedules, wiretap targets, license plates of unmarked cars. The line between cop and criminal blurs until it's nothing but reflection in rainwater. One evening, sitting in a car under a broken streetlight, one of those cops tells him, "You're the smartest of them, Tony. You play chess while they play cards." Casso smiles, offers the man a cigarette. He lights it for him. Then says quietly, "Chess ends the same as cards. One king standing." He never raises his voice. He never blinks. Even the rain seems to hold its breath when he speaks. In the years ahead, he'll become one of the most feared men in New York. A ghost who controls police, judges, and killers. But that night, in the soft hiss of rainfall against glass, he's still just a man in a car, staring at his reflection, realizing something terrible and true. He likes it. The calm before. The quiet after. The way violence feels like symmetry. When he drives home, the streets are empty. The lamplight blurs through rain. He passes a corner where years earlier an old man with a cigar once ruled. He doesn't remember the name. He doesn't need to. The city remembers for him. Because in Brooklyn, power doesn't die, it just changes faces, keeps the same silence. The same rain. The same ghosts waiting in doorways. The city had learned to whisper his name. Not loudly, never that. Just softly, the way people mention storms that haven't arrived yet. Anthony Gaspipe Casso. Underboss of the Lucchese family. The man who knew everyone's secrets and most of their fears. By 1986, New York's underworld looked different. The old dons were either in courtrooms or coffins. The commission trial had torn the five families apart. The government called it justice. The streets called it vacancy. Casso filled the space like water. Quietly. Efficiently. A name appearing on envelopes, on contracts, on death lists that never reached daylight. He had no office. No headquarters. His kingdom was a network of payphones, warehouses, and memories. He carried every name, every dollar, every betrayal in his head. When others kept ledgers, he kept ghosts. He never spoke over the phone. Never used the same car twice in a week. If someone asked him where he lived, he smiled and said, "Wherever it rains." His alliance with Vic Amuso had turned the Luccheses into something new. A corporation of crime, cold and efficient. Amuso handled the politics. Casso handled the problems. Together they created a machine that printed fear like currency. Construction contracts, extortion, gambling, drugs, everything flowed through them. But the real innovation was information. Casso's police informants, his crystals, gave him sight. He knew when raids were coming, which phones were tapped, who was talking to the feds. He knew before they did. And when one of his cops whispered that an old associate might be flipping, the associate's car usually caught fire before sunrise. At night, Casso sat in his kitchen, drinking coffee gone cold, listening to rain against the windows. His wife would find him like that, motionless, staring through the glass as if waiting for the city to answer him. "Don't you ever sleep?" she'd ask. He'd smile without looking away. Only when it rains hard enough to cover the noise. His men called him the accountant of death. Every killing had a reason, a ledger entry. He didn't raise his voice or pull triggers himself anymore. He just balanced equations. A man who stole died. A man who lied disappeared. A man who disrespected the chain became an example. He kept the streets orderly, brutal, predictable, a strange kind of peace carved out of fear. One evening, a young soldier named Tommy DeSimone bragged too loud about money that wasn't his. Someone repeated it to Casso. He didn't respond. He just lit a cigarette, let it burn halfway, then said, "Send him a message." 2 nights later, Tommy vanished. No body, no funeral, no closure. Only silence, the kind Casso preferred. He told Amuso afterward, "When a man disappears, people pray louder. It keeps the streets clean." Amuso nodded. He understood. The FBI's files on Casso grew thick. They had surveillance photos, half-heard wiretaps, informant reports, everything except proof. Agents compared notes, frustrated. They joked that even God would need a subpoena to catch him. One agent wrote in his notebook, "Casso moves like rainwater, no shape, no sound, everywhere at once." In 1989, Amuso officially became boss of the Lucchese family. Casso remained underboss, but everyone knew who really held the strings. He sat behind Amuso at meetings, silent, expressionless, a faint smile under dim light. When he finally spoke, men leaned in. He didn't waste words. Every sentence was an instruction. Every pause was a warning. He reminded some of Galante, that same stillness, that same gravity. But colder, more modern, like a machine built from the same material as rain and metal. Yet power changes everything it touches. Even silence. Casso began trusting fewer people. He rotated bodyguards weekly. He changed houses monthly. He once said, "The only loyalty I believe in is the kind I can pay for." He started carrying a pistol again, not because he needed it, but because he didn't trust anyone else to. The first cracks appeared when a shipment went missing. $1 million of heroin gone overnight. Casso didn't ask who stole it. He asked who knew about it. By the end of the week, 4 men were dead, all innocent, all reminders. He told Amuso, "If you kill the wrong man fast enough, the right man never tests you." It worked. For a while. Still, paranoia has gravity. It pulls even kings down. Casso began hearing stories, whispers of betrayal, rumors of informants. He told his men to watch everyone. They did. And soon, everyone was watching everyone else. The family that once ran on silence now ran on fear. And fear is loud when it breaks. One night, as thunder rolled over the Verrazzano Bridge, Casso sat alone in his car, engine idling. the windshield blurred with rain. He thought of all the faces he'd erased, all the streets he'd buried names beneath. He wondered if the rain remembered them. He whispered to himself, "No king stays dry forever." Then he drove off into the dark, taillights glowing red against the wet road. The quiet king of Brooklyn, ruling a kingdom made of mirrors and ghosts. The rain hadn't stopped for days. Brooklyn felt washed thin, its streets glistening with the residue of secrets. It was summer again, 1990. The city was warm, but Anthony Casso felt cold inside. He sat in his kitchen, the same one he'd ruled from for years, blinds half drawn, coffee going stale, radio murmuring low. Outside, thunder rolled over the river like slow applause. On the table lay a list. 10 names. All Lucchese men. All suspected of talking to the feds. He read them slowly once, then again. He didn't blink. He just listened to the rain tapping the window, the old rhythm he'd always found calming. Now it only reminded him of footsteps, soft, steady, closing in. Betrayal in his world never came loud. It came as a whisper. A pause too long in conversation. A look that didn't match the words. A question asked twice. Casso had spent his life hunting those signs. He thought he'd mastered it. He thought wrong. That spring, a driver in his crew, a man named Peter Chiodo, got arrested. A routine FBI sweep, nothing unusual. But the next day, before Casso could even send a lawyer, word spread that Chiodo had cooperated. The word echoed through every hallway like thunder in a church. Casso refused to believe it at first. Then his phone rang. A voice said quietly, "He's talking, Tony. He's talking about you." He didn't sleep that night. Or the night after. He called Amuso. Vittorio Amuso, boss, partner, mirror. The man who thought like him, killed like him, feared like him. They had built the Lucchese empire together, piece by piece. Now they were both trapped inside it. The two met at a diner in Queens. No entourage, no guards. Just two men in suits, coffee between them, rain drumming on the roof. Casso spoke first. "They're folding on us, Vic. The whole system. Feds got the wires, the cops are selling files to both sides and our own men." Amuso cut him off. "Then we stop trusting them. We go to ground. Only us." Casso nodded. He felt something break inside him, quiet, invisible, final. A man who trusts no one has nothing left to rule. Within a week they vanished. The papers would later call it, the flight of the Luccheses. They left their homes, their cars, their families. They became ghosts. Rumors swirled. Safe houses in New Jersey, motels in Pennsylvania, apartments rented under fake names in Florida. Each night they moved before dawn. Each morning, Casso wiped the prints off every glass, every doorknob, every faucet. He told Amuso, "The feds don't need evidence. They need stories. We can't give them any. But even stories have a way of writing themselves." Meanwhile, inside the family, chaos bloomed. Captains turned on captains. The soldiers, unsure who was alive or who was boss, began listening to their own greed. The quiet order Casso had built dissolved into whispers and bullets. Two of his men, Fat Pete Chiodo and Frank Lastarino, started to speak with prosecutors. Casso sent messages, then warnings, then contracts. But the feds moved faster. In a single month, 7 indictments dropped. Federal task forces swept through Brooklyn like storm fronts. Every arrest sounded like rain hitting metal, fast, relentless, echoing. Casso and Amuso lived in safe houses, dingy rooms with brown wallpaper and broken locks. They ate canned food, kept curtains closed. Casso slept with a pistol under his pillow and a radio on low, tuned to static. One night he told Amuso, "You ever think about Galante?" Amuso frowned. "The cigar guy?" Casso nodded. He thought fear would save him. It didn't. They sat in silence. The rain filled in the rest. But paranoia doesn't need enemies. Makes them. Casso began suspecting Amuso himself, the only man left he could trust. He noticed small things. A phone call taken in another room, an unshared detail, a changed route on the way to a meeting. He started carrying 2 guns. He stopped sleeping altogether. Amuso, meanwhile, had his own doubts. He told a friend later, "Tony's got ghosts behind his eyes. You can't reason with ghosts." By the time they reached Scranton, Pennsylvania, the 2 men were sharing the same room but not the same loyalty. The end came as always quietly. An informant tipped the feds. An address, a car description, a time. It was enough. One night in January 1991, Amuso left to pick up supplies. He never came back. Casso waited hours, staring at the rain streaking down the window. When he finally heard sirens in the distance, he knew. He drove through the night, crossing state lines with the radio off, headlights dimmed. He didn't look back. He told himself he didn't need to. But he did. Behind him, the kingdom was gone. A web of payoffs, murders, and silence collapsing under its own weight. For the next 2 years, Anthony Casso lived like a shadow. He changed names, cities, faces. He paid cash, burned clothes, never slept in the same bed twice. But even ghosts get tired. And in November 1993, when a SWAT team surrounded a small house on Long Island, he didn't resist. He just stood by the window watching the rain streak down the glass, hands at his sides. When the agents kicked in the door, one shouted, "Anthony Casso." On the ground. He smiled faintly. "Been there my whole life," he said. They cuffed him, led him out into the storm. Rain soaked his hair, his suit, his silence. As the car door closed, he looked up at the sky. Lightning flickered, distant but visible. He whispered something the agents didn't catch. Later, one of them swore he heard it clearly, 4 words quiet as breath. "Rain don't wash everything." The cell was small, white and humming. No windows. No clocks. Just the slow drip of time through fluorescent light. Anthony Casso sat on the edge of a metal bed, staring at the wall as if waiting for it to blink first. His hands were cuffed in front of him, his suit jacket gone, his hair slick from the rain they'd pulled him out of. He still looked sharp, like a man visiting, not a man staying. Outside, the guards moved with quiet efficiency. They'd all heard the name. Gaspipe. The one who ran New York's fear machine for a decade. Now sitting alone, calm, almost polite. They didn't speak to him. He didn't speak to them. But the silence had weight, the kind that presses on air until breathing feels like confession. The FBI called him a high-value capture. They moved him to a federal facility upstate, away from the city he'd ruled like a ghost. His lawyer told him the usual things. Keep quiet. Don't sign anything. Don't trust anyone. Casso nodded, listening. But inside, something else had already shifted. The empire was gone. Amuso was gone. The family, fractured, hunted, turning on itself, was a memory. The only power left was knowledge. And knowledge in his world was still a weapon. When the agents finally came, they expected defiance. What they got was conversation. He asked for coffee, black, 2 sugars. He drank half, set the cup down and began. Names. Dates. Locations. Come. Precise. As if reading from a ledger only he could see. The agents stared, unsure whether to take notes or simply listen. This was the man they'd chased for years, the invisible thread behind murders, payoffs, cops on payrolls, judges on lists. Now he was unraveling it himself. He told them about the Crystal, the network of NYPD detectives he'd bribed for years. He named them Eppolito Caracappa, the Mafia Cops, as the papers would later call them. He described how they fed him information, protected him, even helped him kill. He didn't sound proud. He didn't sound sorry. He sounded factual, like an engineer describing a bridge that finally collapsed. Everybody's corrupt, he told the agents. Only difference is how much you charge. The Bureau thought they'd found their perfect witness, the man who could map the entire architecture of organized crime from memory. They promised him protection, a new identity, a quiet life somewhere. The rain sounded different. Casso smiled. He'd heard promises before. But he accepted anyway. Not because he believed them, because he believed in staying useful. A man with information doesn't rot. Not yet. Weeks turned into months. Casso talked. And talked. And talked. Each session was another excavation. Layers of the Lucchese family peeled back until the agents began to see what he saw. A city built on compromise, a country addicted to silence. He told them about hits ordered on a handshake. About deals struck over espresso. About the way rain made people forget blood faster. Sometimes, late at night, when the agents left him alone, he would hum softly, Sicilian lullabies half-remembered from childhood. The sound echoed in the concrete room, turning history into weather. But cooperation is its own kind of trap. The more he talked, the more they realized he never stopped manipulating. He mixed truth with precision and lies with confidence. He told one agent, "If you can't tell which part's real, that's how you know it's all true." They didn't laugh. By 1994, the case files were overflowing. Casso had given them the skeleton of the Lucchese family and enough blood to fill the rest. He'd named bosses, soldiers, cops, judges, mayors, the map of corruption stretching farther than they'd ever imagined. But along with it came something else. Contradictions, embellishments, deliberate chaos. He was trying to control the story even from inside his cage. The Bureau began to doubt him. The prosecutors hesitated. One of them said privately, He's not confessing. He's still conducting. And then came the breaking point. During a debriefing, Casso accused 2 FBI agents of taking bribes, the same ones who'd been protecting his enemies. He demanded they be investigated. He threatened to stop talking. The room fell silent. The agents exchanged looks. The power dynamic had shifted. Within a week, his cooperation agreement was revoked. The government labeled him unreliable. His protection, gone. His future, sealed. When they told him, he didn't shout. He didn't move. He just nodded, stared down at his coffee cup and said quietly, "Even silence needs an audience." They transferred him that same night. Supermax. Solitary. A place where rain never touched the windows. Years blurred. He aged without witnesses. Hair turned white, eyes dull but steady. Every sound, the hum of lights, the footsteps of guards, became his new kind of rain. He wrote letters sometimes. To no one in particular. They all began the same way. To whoever remembers. He'd write about the city, about the docks, about the men who once bowed their heads when he passed. He never mentioned regret. He only wrote about silence. About how it never ends. The world outside moved on. The families reorganized. New names replaced old ones. The cigar and the gaspipe became stories, then rumors, then myths, men whose power dissolved into legend. But in the prison records there was still one line that didn't fade. Inmate 33578-054. Anthony Salvatore Casso. Life without parole. In 2013, a journalist wrote him a letter asking for an interview. He replied once. The paper was thin, the handwriting careful. He wrote, "Everybody wants to know how it ends. It doesn't. It just keeps raining somewhere. Morning doesn't mean much in a place without windows. The lights hum on at the same hour every day. The air smells faintly of disinfectant and metal. Breakfast slides through a slot. Lukewarm coffee, white bread, a square of eggs that never cool or warm." Anthony Casso sits at the steel table, hands folded. He has stopped marking time. He no longer counts the days. He measures them by sound, the squeak of the food cart, the rattle of keys, the faint echo of rain on the roof that he can't see. Once he commanded a city. Now his kingdom fits between 4 walls and a memory. They called him a cooperator for a while. That word used to mean safety, a new life, a new name, an ocean away from the past. But for Casso it meant something else, a temporary pause before punishment. The FBI had walked away. The prosecutors had filed him under unreliable witness. The guards called him the talker who talked too much. Even the mob, what was left of it, refused to speak his name. He'd broken every rule he ever enforced, and the world answered the only way it knows how, by forgetting. He writes in a small notebook the prison allows him. Neat script, pencil, no lines crossed. Every page begins the same. "I was never afraid of death, only of being misunderstood." Then he lists details, dates, faces, street corners, the smell of cigar smoke in a diner 30 years ago. Sometimes he stops mid-sentence, stares at the page until the words fade into static. The bureau visits once more, 1997. 2 new agents, polite, curious. They ask if he's ready to set the record straight. He looks up slowly. There is no straight. There's only what you believe longer. They record the interview anyway. He gives them fragments, who killed whom, who paid, who prayed. He tells the same story 3 different ways, changing only the weather each time. Rain, always rain. They leave with tapes full of echoes. After they're gone, he leans back on his cot and closes his eyes. He remembers the sound of tires on wet asphalt, the smell of gun oil, the quiet after a decision. He remembers being feared. Fear was conversation, now he lives in monologue. The silence of power was different, thick, respectful. The silence of prison is thin, endless, hungry. In 2002 he's transferred again, deeper underground. No one tells him why. The guards treat him like a ghost they've been ordered to feed. He doesn't mind. Ghosts at least can move through walls. He begins to talk to himself, softly, as if narrating a story to an unseen listener. Sometimes he tells it in third person. Gaspipe used to run Brooklyn. Gaspipe made the rain obey. Other times he uses the present. I'm still here. A prison psychiatrist asks if he regrets anything. Casso smiles. Regrets for people who stop before the end. I just ran out of pages. The doctor writes narcissistic, coherent, oriented, unrepentant. The report disappears into a file cabinet, unread. In the outside world, books appear. Documentaries. Podcasts. Every storyteller wants a piece of the myth. Some paint him as genius, others as monster. None get him right. He reads the headlines once, then tears the paper into neat squares and flushes them. They never listen to the pauses, he mutters. That's where the truth sits. Years pass. The rose bush in front of his old house in Diker Heights dies. His wife moves away. His children change their last names. The city forgets. Only the weather remains familiar. Every storm over New York feels personal, a soundtrack that outlived its composer. A guard new to the job walks him to the infirmary. You really kill all those people? The kid asks. Casso smiles faintly. Oh? No. Just the necessary ones. The guard doesn't know whether to laugh or pray. Sometimes late at night, Casso dreams of rain on metal rooftops, of a pipe clattering to the floor, of a cigar still burning. He wakes before the ending every time. He sits up, breath steady, heart calm. Not yet, he whispers. When he turns 80, a reporter requests one final interview. They bring a recorder, place it on the table between them. He stares at it, then says quietly, "You want a confession?" There isn't one. There's just weather. He leans closer. You think stories end? They don't. They just run out of witnesses. The tape clicks off. The rain starts again. By 2020, the world outside is silent for another reason. Pandemic. Isolation inside isolation. Casso catches the virus in December. The doctors move him to the hospital wing. He asks for a window seat. He wants to see the sky. Snow begins to fall, white, slow, endless. He smiles faintly. Looks like rain. Then the monitor flattens to a single tone. The next morning, the guards find the notebook under his pillow. Last page, one line written in pencil. Fear dies. Silence doesn't. Night again. A long, sleepless night that sounds like rain even when there's no rain left. Anthony Casso lies in the hospital cot, machines breathing for him, monitors blinking in steady rhythm. The world outside is muted, white walls, snow instead of thunder. But in his mind, Brooklyn is awake. Wet streets. Streetlights bending through fog. And the smell? Tobacco, oil, something metallic. He closes his eyes and sees another man sitting in the rain. A restaurant patio. A cigar that never goes out. Carmine Galante. The cigar. The man who believed fear was architecture. Casso never met him, not really. But the legend was everywhere when he was young. The photo, the headlines, the whispers that even death respected him. Now, lying half in sleep, half in fever, Casso imagines him across the table. Galante looks exactly like the pictures. Thick eyebrows, relaxed smile, smoke curling like a crown. He leans back, unbothered by time or consequence. You're late, he says. Casso answers softly, traffic. The two men regard each other in silence. It's not friendly. It's familiar. Galante studies him. You built your empire on numbers, he says. I built mine on fear. Which lasted longer? Casso smirks. Neither. The city forgot both. Galante laughs, low, rough, almost kind. Maybe that's the point. The city doesn't need us. We were just the noise it made while changing. The sound of rain thickens around them. Casso can smell the salt air of the docks, the diesel, the iron, everything that shaped them. He wonders if this is death, two ghosts remembering the weather. Galante flicks ash into a puddle. You ever regret it? He asks. Casso shakes his head. Regret's a trick. It keeps you talking to ghosts. You're talking to one now, Galante says. That makes them both laugh. The sound doesn't echo, it dissolves into the rain. They sit for a while sharing the quiet. No threats. No hierarchy. Just two men who once believed silence could be owned. Finally Casso says, they called you a volcano. They called me a machine. Both of us burned everything we touched. Galante nods. Fire keeps people warm until it doesn't. Casso looks down at the table between them. It's wet, glistening. He can see both their reflections blurred together, the old and the new, one face fading into another. In the distance, sirens moan, not police, not ambulance, just sound. Brooklyn, alive and endless. The rain turns to mist. The lights dim. Galante leans forward. You thought control was power. But power's just the moment before memory. After that, you belong to whoever tells the story. Casso closes his eyes. I told mine. Galante smiles, taps the cigar against the table. Then stop talking. The hospital monitor beeps once, then steadies. A nurse checks the room. She sees the old man asleep, mouth slightly open, eyes half closed. She adjusts the blanket, doesn't notice the faint scent of tobacco drifting through air that should smell only of antiseptic. Outside, snow falls in slow spirals. From far away it could almost be rain. Some say dying men see tunnels of light. Casso sees tunnels of alleys. He walks them slowly, rain-slick brick, neon bleeding through puddles. At the end of one alley, a restaurant sign glows faintly, Joe and Mary's. He pushes the gate open. Inside, a single chair. On the table, an unlit cigar. He sits, picks it up, rolls it between his fingers. He doesn't light it. He just holds it. The rain outside stops. Silence, absolute and infinite. He whispers something to no one. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe it's punctuation. Fear dies. Silence doesn't. Then he sets the cigar down, leans back, and lets the darkness close like a curtain. In the morning, the nurse finds him gone. Peaceful. So. The note on his nightstand reads, "For Carmine. Tell him the rain finally stopped." Outside, the snow melts into puddles that reflect the city skyline. Steam rises from manholes. Life goes on, markets opening, sirens wailing, pigeons scattering. No one notices the faint smell of tobacco that lingers as the wind shifts east. No one but the sky. It begins as all endings do with weather. Rain over Brooklyn. Thin, silver, steady. The kind that soaks through the city without anyone noticing. The kind that sounds like breathing when you listen long enough. It runs down fire escapes, glides over brick, collects in the same gutters that once carried whispers of Carmine Galante's empire, of Anthony Casso's reign, of all the names that once mattered and now only echo. If you walk those streets tonight, you won't find them. You'll find the silence they left behind, the pause between thunder and memory. Somewhere near Knickerbocker Avenue, the old restaurant still stands. The windows boarded. The sign half rusted, letters missing. But the bones of it remain. Locals pass it without looking twice. To them, it's just another relic of a city that eats its own stories. But if you stand there long enough, if you listen closely, the rain tells you something. You might hear laughter under the thunder. A chair scraping. The hiss of a cigar catching flame. You might even smell tobacco, faint, impossible, real. Farther south, in Diker Heights, the house where Casso once lived is gone. A new family moved in years ago. Children play in the yard where the rose bush never bloomed. They don't know who planted it. They don't need to. Every spring, when the rain is heavy and the air smells of iron, something small and green pushes through the soil. Not a rose. Something wilder. Something nameless. Time has a way of erasing faces but keeping patterns. The same streets still hum. The same docks still load and unload. The same deals are made in different suits, different languages, the same silence. Maybe that's what the mafia really was, not an organization but a rhythm. A way of moving through the world without ever being seen, of speaking through gesture, through fear, through absence. And maybe that rhythm never died. It just changed hands. The rain keeps falling. On graves. On skyscrapers. On the empty lots where old warehouses once stood. It falls evenly, no hierarchy left, no kings or underbosses. Galante, Casso, the others, all washed into the same soil, their names blending into the city's heartbeat. And somewhere in that sound, a voice still narrates. Soft, steady, unhurried. Telling the story again for anyone who couldn't sleep through it the first time. It begins the same way it always has. Brooklyn. A city built on silence. A rain that never ends. The voice drifts between thunder and memory, reminding you that every empire, no matter how loud it begins, ends in a whisper. That fear is only temporary. That silence is eternal. The camera of your mind pulls back now. You see the streets from above, lights flickering through mist, cars crawling through puddles, steam rising from subway grates like ghosts exhaling. The city looks peaceful from here. Almost innocent. You never know what it remembers. Somewhere a window glows. A radio plays Sinatra, cracked and soft. A hand reaches out, lights a cigar. The smoke curls toward the ceiling and disappears. The rain answers, patient as time. If you close your eyes now, you can almost hear it. Galante's laugh, low and gravelly. Casso's whisper, dry and measured. Both fading under the steady percussion of weather on glass. Not saints. Not monsters. Just men who believed they could outlive sound. They didn't. No one does. The rain keeps talking long after they stop. It taps against the city like a metronome, marking the seconds between history and sleep. Each drop another word, another secret, another unburied name. And you, listening in the dark, become part of the story. The final witness to a world built on silence. You breathe out. You let go. Outside, dawn is coming. The sky brightens over the East River, turning gray into silver. The rain softens, fading into mist. The city exhales. Somewhere far below, A single drop falls from a fire escape, hits the ground and disappears. The last sound of the storm.